Modern dating, it really can feel like you're trying to navigate a maze sometimes, right?
Right, oh, absolutely. It's a constantly shifting landscape.
Yeah. And the rules are often, well, unspoken, or they just flat out contradict each other.
Yeah.
We're all trying to figure out where we stand, what works.
And what definitely doesn't.
Exactly. But what if there was this, like, incredibly specific, maybe even kind of brutal framework trying to define it all, particularly for men?
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today.
Right.
Our deep dive is into a model called the Hourglass of Modern Dating for Men. It's from Escuro over at the Insight Exchange.
Ah, okay.
And it presents this, well, truly unique and frankly quite rigid way of looking at male roles and, I guess, perceived value in dating today.
Right. So our mission then, for you listening,
Mm-hmm.
is to really unpack this model piece by piece.
Uh-huh.
We're going to dissect how it categorizes men,
Yeah.
starting from what it calls the most favorable positions,
Right at the top.
all the way down to the ones it sees as, well, decidedly less favorable.
Yeah.
And we want to explore what this specific framework highlights about some, prevailing narratives out there, and maybe what insights or perhaps some pretty potent questions it might spark for you about how we think about modern relationships.
Okay, so let's start with the visual itself. It's called the hourglass for a reason.
Right.
You need to picture an upside-down triangle at the very top, wide, expansive,
Okay.
which then narrows down pretty dramatically.
And then crucially, there's something in the middle.
Yes, a dotted line. The source describes this as the critical separator.
The absolute dividing line.
That's how it's presented. Between men considered to be in a favorable dating position
Uh-huh.
and those who, according to this model, are not.
And below that line.
Below the dotted line, you get a mirror image, a triangle pointing upwards this time, representing what the source calls the unsuccessful or unfavorable positions.
Wow, so it's not just a picture, it's a really stark boundary.
It's a profound conceptual boundary. What's really striking is how the author sets up this dotted line as this, absolute cutoff,
Yeah.
delineating perceived success from unsuccess in dating based on its own very specific terms. It implies this really binary system doesn't leave much room for, nuance.
Okay, so if we're visualizing this hourglass, let's start at the widest part, the very top.
Right.
This is where Escuro places the men with what he sees as the ultimate advantages in dating. What does that pinnacle look like in this model?
So at the absolute apex, the source puts celebrities.
Okay, celebrities. Makes sense.
Yeah, defined by fame, fortune, status, loads of opportunity. And the power they supposedly hold, according to this framework, is, well, immense.
How immense?
The source just states it directly, and they can have any woman they want.
Wow, okay.
And it gets incredibly specific about the attributes, almost like a checklist.
Like what?
Over 6 feet tall, earn 6 figures, have a six-pack, and are well endowed.
Huh. That is quite the list of requirements for the absolute top tier.
It is.
So moving just slightly down from that, what's the next level within this favorable zone?
Okay, below celebrities, we find what the source labels Chads and Tyrones.
Chads and Tyrones, got it.
These guys are identified as the players.
Oh, okay.
The source says they may not be around for girlfriends or relationships, but despite maybe not having the six-figure income or that broader success,
Uh-huh.
they're still described as highly successful in, being with ladies.
Interesting. So the model separates them out. The celebrities have the fame and fortune.
Right.
But these Chads and Tyrones seem to succeed based on something else.
Yeah.
A different kind of prowess.
Well, what's striking is the attributes the source emphasizes for them.
Yeah.
It's still primarily physical, according to the source.
Mm.
Over 6 feet tall and well endowed.
Still those two.
Still those two. It keeps emphasizing these physical traits as central to their dating success in this model, even if other kinds of success aren't there.
It really simplifies desirability down to some very blunt criteria.
It does.
Okay, so descending further down this top triangle, we hit average men.
Right. Described as men who are attractive enough.
Attractive enough.
Okay. But here, the model introduces this noticeable drop-off in attributes.
How so?
They might not earn 6 figures. They might be shorter than 6 feet, have an average build
Uh-huh.
and no real prowess in the bedroom, according to the source.
So it's clearly showing this diminishing set of those traits we saw higher up.
Exactly. The model explicitly states, as you lack these specific things, your spot on the hierarchy goes down.
Right.
And then at the very bottom of this top triangle, just hovering above that critical dotted line,
Yeah.
the model puts a section for guys who, in the source's words, may not have anything.
Wow, okay. So even within the favorable zone, this last group is kind of precarious.
Very precarious. The source suggests they're only there because nobody else was,
Right.
and that they get a chance to get out of the friend zone, so their favorable status is almost entirely conditional.
Based on, like, the absence of other options for the woman.
Exactly. And that precariousness leads us right to the dotted line.
Okay.
And this isn't presented as some subtle shift. It's stark. Crossing this line means moving into the categories of unsuccessful guys.
The point of no return, basically.
According to this framework, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the conceptual point of no return for dating success.
That is quite a definitive line in the sand, isn't it? Suggests a very binary outcome in this dating world.
It does.
So, okay, now we're in the bottom triangle, pointing upwards, representing the unfavorable dating positions for men.
Correct.
And at the very top of this triangle, so just below that dotted line, we find the gay friend.
Yep. And the description is, well, direct. Men who will not get any action, nor do they care.
And their role,
Their role, as defined by the source, is entirely support.
just support.
Yeah. And retail therapy, apparently, when their female friend gets heartbroken by a Chad or Tyrone.
So it positions them completely outside the romantic or sexual sphere in this model.
Totally. Almost like an auxiliary character in someone else's dating drama.
Got it. Okay, next level down.
We descend into friend zone, guys.
The classic friend zone.
Right. These are men deemed not good enough to date, but who are, interestingly, kept around.
Kept around for what, according to the source?
Well, the source details their roles with quite a specific tone. They're expected to pay for drinks in the club, hold your bag, and give free attention and validation.
Oof, that's pretty specific.
It gets more specific. They are the ones, as the source puts it, women turn to when you need a shoulder to cry on and to laugh at and disrespect.
Wow.
And this section also introduces the term the simp.
Okay, the simp.
Yeah.
How's that defined here?
As the nice guy who is taken advantage of and not respected,
Bro.
chosen as the backup plan when Chad or Tyrone leave. The source even goes so far as to suggest women probably married them because they have kids or nobody wants them, and this guy was a simp and stayed around.
That paints a really brutal picture of those relationships.
It does. It's quite an intense description of the simp and those dynamics.
Okay, moving further down into this unfavorable zone, the family zone.
Yes. This is where the nice guy is apparently so nice that the family love him.
But the implication isn't good, I'm guessing.
Not in this model, no. The implication, according to the source, is that this man becomes like a brother or cousin.
So zero intimacy.
Absolutely zero intimacy suggested. He gets absolutely nothing from this relationship, is the phrasing used.
And the roles outlined.
They're pretty grim. He can become a female friend, male relative, or worse, they become the babysitter to her kids when she is on a date.
Babysitting while she dates someone else.
That's what the source states. It's a complete removal from any romantic possibility, even becoming, a support system for her dates with other men.
Okay. And finally, we reach the absolute bottom of this inverted triangle, the narrowest point of the entire dating pool in this model.
Right. Here we have men who are disliked and despised and only looked at when a bill needs to be paid.
Yikes. And this is where stepfathers are placed.
This is where stepfathers are placed within this specific framework, yes.
And the description.
The source is quite harsh here. It states they've married the single mother with kids and are clearly not the prize.
Ouch.
It further claims the mother fights with them, and even the kids want nothing to do with them other than fund their lifestyle.
So, just a picture of a relationship totally devoid of respect or affection from anyone else involved.
That's the picture painted, yes.
So, okay, after laying out this entire very structured hourglass, the author, Elisciro, offers some core assertions, some advice.
Yeah, pretty direct advice. For men who find themselves fitting into any category within that entire bottom triangle, the advice is clear. Find someone else because the ladies do not respect you.
Just move on.
Pretty much. The source emphasizes what it sees as the fundamental pursuit dynamic, stating, ladies pursue who they want, so men, if that is not you, move on.
Leaves very little room for other possibilities, like personal growth or just individual agency outside this really rigid framework.
Very little room, no.
And it concludes with something about a paradox.
Yeah, what the author presents as a core paradox of modern dating. Modern dating is complicated because women want the traditional man, but do not want to be the traditional woman.
Interesting framing.
And the entire piece finishes with a direct question aimed right at you, the listener.
Which is
Ask yourself, where do you fit in?
a challenging prompt, definitely.
Yeah.
Pushing you to consider your own position within this very specific and often, stark categorization of male roles in dating.
Exactly.
And that really brings us to the end of our deep dive into The Hourglass of Modern Dating for Men by Ella Scuro. It's certainly, it's a highly specific and categorical view.
It really is. It lays out these roles, this perceived value in the dating world. It doesn't sugarcoat anything.
No, definitely not. And its blunt assessments offer, a particular lens on these really complex dynamics.
And I think this model, with its rigid tiers, the checklist attributes, those stark descriptions, it really highlights just how varied perspectives can be.
Yeah.
And sometimes intensely critical when it comes to modern relationships and desirability. It offers a very particular framework.
For sure.
And it's definitely worth considering what such a clearly defined system might imply about success and failure in dating, at least according to this one source.
Right. So as you listening reflect on this, maybe ask yourself, what are the implications if someone were to fully accept this model? Or maybe entirely reject it? What does accepting or rejecting such a clearly defined and often stark categorization of male roles in dating mean?
And what does this specific hourglass, this particular viewpoint, tell us about some of the prevailing narratives and maybe assumptions floating around today about gender and relationships?
Yeah, whether you agree with them or not. Something to think about.